A few years ago, when I was living in Bali, I had a psychedelic trip that I did completely by myself that lasted for about 4 to 5 hours. That was so intense that it's still something that I think about to this day, every single day, multiple times a day. It was honestly the best and the worst experience of my life, as weird as that might sound. I even ended up with bleeding feet. I'm gonna show you an image. I don't think I can show it on YouTube, so I'm gonna blur it. But this is how crazy it got. What I took was mushrooms, and you might be thinking to yourself like, oh, it was just mushrooms. No. Look, I had done psychedelics many times before. I had done truffles countless times, mushrooms, even ayahuasca. Okay, I was very experienced. But this trip was something else. I thought I knew the levels that you can reach with psychedelics, but this got way crazier than anything I had experienced before. This was beyond ego death, this was God death. This was everything death, basically. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I took this whole bag of mushrooms and I chopped it up and I mixed it with a yogurt and honey and I chunked the whole thing, right? It kicked in really quick, really quick. I think like within 10 minutes, I was already starting to trip, with the visuals, seeing patterns, this kind of stuff. Then it scaled from there, if you've done psychedelics before, you know what it's about, the initial stages. What I was feeling at the beginning was like feeling like a monkey, like a wolf, like a jaguar, these kind of things. I don't know why I always feel like these animals when I'm on psychedelics. And then all this introspection, thinking about society, the concept of internet, I was thinking about that a lot. Then it kept climbing up and more and more and more. And it got to a point that I went beyond the introspection and all that stuff. And I think I lost my vision. And basically what I was seeing, in fact, I'm gonna draw it. So what I was seeing was like this, if this is my field of view, kinda. So obviously I was not seeing anything anymore. On this side of my field of vision, I was seeing like numbers, like random numbers, and I was hearing someone say like the numbers and the numbers and the numbers. That's what I was hearing. It was so weird. Then on this side of my field of vision, here I was seeing like weird geometrical shapes, but not perfect ones, okay? Not like sacred geometry and this kind of stuff. I'm drawing triangles and circles, but I don't know, like weird geometrical shapes. And then at the bottom, I don't know, there was more stuff. I don't know how to describe it, honestly. It felt like entities, but it's difficult to describe it, honestly. And then it's like this whole thing kept cycling over and over, like sometimes I would see the shapes, sometimes I would see the entities, sometimes I would see the numbers, and each one had their own sounds. I remember that the numbers, that's what I was hearing, like the numbers and the numbers, like there was something with them. But I know that I was hearing stuff with the geometry and the entities, but I don't remember what was it. So then eventually I transcended, like I got out of that stage and I went back to recovering my field of vision and being able to see stuff. And that's when things got really scary, because I realized I had gone beyond my usual levels of psychedelics, right? Because before, when I had done psychedelics, if we have an axis and this is time and this is intensity, right? The intensity of the effect of psychedelics. Usually when you take psychedelics at the beginning, they're chill, you don't have an effect, and then it starts to go up, and you have like these waves. It goes up and down, and eventually like you reach a peak and you stay there, and you fluctuate. Maybe you have like a super peak and all that stuff. You stay there, and eventually you go down, right? And usually the levels that I had reached with psychedelics were around this area, right? Just to give it a random number, maybe we could call it like I had reached level 8. I don't know. And I believed that the maximum you could achieve with psychedelics was like a 10, right? So I thought I knew what psychedelics were about because I had done ayahuasca and all these things before. So I was fairly certain of my of my experiences with psychedelics, how veteran I was with it. So the thing is that with this trip, it's like I kept climbing up and up and up, and I broke through, and it went to the moon, the levels like level 60 and 70 and 100. It was absolutely crazy, right? And when I broke out of this cycle of numbers, I went back to being able to perceive my surroundings. And that's the first mistake that I did, was to freak out, because this was completely uncharted territory. I didn't know what this was, but I was not liking it, right? And here I was already losing myself. Like, there was a very thin layer that I could grasp that was still my personality, my identity, but it was slipping away so much. And I freaked out because I don't remember why. I mean, obviously for many different reasons. Because it was not so much about introspection or other people, or this was like I was breaking the foundations of reality and my existence. Like, they were all shaky. Literally, I was seeing like everything shake. Like, my whole reality was crumbling. And eventually I was like, okay, fuck this. I went to the kitchen. I grabbed a banana and I was like, okay, I'm gonna eat something, I'm gonna reset myself, and I'm out of here, you know? And as I'm peeling the banana and I go to bite it, that's when the real trip started. That's when everything froze. I froze too. I just looked at the room and it just felt like, you know, like a glass shattered and then it completely broke, you know? And that's when the real trip started. That's when I got into the whole existential journey that was about to come, which at the beginning what I was feeling is that I was trapped within my own existence, within my own consciousness. So I felt, maybe you could call it simulation theory. So I thought that everything that existed was something that me, my consciousness, whatever, had just built to cope with the fact that there is nothing, right? As if I was this entity that's trapped within itself, and just to cope and do something and forget about that there's nothing else, I had created this whole reality, right? And that, I just laid there feeling it, you know, it felt like I was a ball of emotions, just feeling stuff and experiencing like this nothingness. But then eventually, after like 10-15 minutes, I started to feel as if I was not trapped within my own consciousness, but I felt like as if I was trapped within a time loop of my own life, right? So say, for example, I don't want to give my real birthday, right? But say, for example, that I was born on 1992, and then that I'm going to die in 2080, that's a weird date, 2087, right? So I felt like I go from 1992, I live my life, and I die here. And once I die, I go back to 1992 as myself, and I live my life again, from the beginning, over and over and over and over again, until, not the same life, but until I attain enlightenment, right? And once I attain enlightenment, I can break out of this cycle, and go to the next level. Well, that's what I felt. It felt like, okay, I've broken out of this cycle, I've ascended to this new level, new dimension, new life, new whatever you want to call it. And now basically I have to figure out what the hell's going on, right? So at that moment, for some reason, I felt like I had to go out to the street, right? Because I was alone by myself in my room, and I just felt like I had to go out. So I opened the door, I left my house, everything open, you know, like the phone was on the floor, laptop was on the floor, wallet was on the floor, like the whole place was a mess. I just left. A friend later asked me like, but when this happened, why didn't you call anybody? And I'm like, man, that makes no sense. Call who? You know, like here I was just thinking that I was the only consciousness. Like, don't you see that it doesn't make, I don't know how to explain it with words, but the concept of who, of calling someone, that does not exist. Like, I don't know how to explain it. If you've done psychedelics, you probably know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so I went out to the street, and then, by the way, I was shirtless. I was just wearing pants, barefoot, you know, that's it. Absolutely nothing else. And when I was walking through the streets of Bali, I was cycling through many different existential theories. So I still felt like, okay, I have ascended to a new dimension, but now I was thinking that my thoughts were constructing reality in a way, so they were molding the reality itself, either if I was thinking positive thoughts or negative thoughts. And as I was trying to learn how to manage this new reality that I was living in, this new dimension that I had ascended to, for some reason I thought that if I go to the gym, I'm gonna figure out the answers. Like there's something at the gym that's gonna guide me into my next move, because that's what I was thinking. I was just following my intuition and being like, I'm just gonna go with the flow and things are gonna come to me. So I start running and I go to the gym, right? And the thing is that during the period that I'm running, I completely black out. Like my memory, I have no memory. I have memory of me starting to run, but that's about it. Then eventually after 5-10 minutes of running, because my gym was kind of far, I start to have feelings of, because I was looking at people, at the eyes of people, and people were looking at me a lot too. Basically because just I was shirtless and walking barefoot, that's why. But I felt, that's when I started to freak out a little bit, because I was feeling as if I was going to have to reincarnate and live the lives of all the people that I would see. And it seemed dreadful, because I'm very aware of the extent of human suffering in a way. Like I'm very aware of how miserable existence can be for some people. And for me, thinking like, man, if I have to reincarnate into every single being that has ever existed, that exists, and that will exist in the future, that's gonna be a lot of work, you know. That's gonna be, yeah, I'm forgetting my lives, but still, that's gonna be a lot of suffering. Yeah, a lot of joy as well, but a lot of suffering too. And that was very dreadful. Then I had other feelings of either going to heaven, to hell. I thought, and I felt sometimes that I was about to die within 5 seconds, you know, because we all know we're gonna die, but you don't know when, so you're chill about it. But when you truly feel as if you're gonna die within 5 seconds, that's quite an interesting experience, we could call it. Eventually, as I was running, I started to feel, when I gained back fully my consciousness, I was like, oh wait, I'm actually God. And I felt like I was God, right? Which is similar to the feeling that I was having at the beginning of me constructing this whole reality, but now was from a positive standpoint, you know, like now I had a positive outlook on it. And so instead of being trapped within my own existence, now I'm like, no, I'm free within my own existence. So I'm God in a way. And then I was walking for a good 5 minutes. This was very blissful, very joyful. But then as I'm walking through the street of Bali, I look to my left and I see this store and I see my own reflection on the glass. And then I thought to myself, I am not God, I'm actually Adam on the Garden of Eden. And then I got this idea, like, I have to find Eve, right? I'm in the Garden of Eden, I'm Adam, where's Eve? And then I was walking around trying to see, like, where can I find her? Where's actually the gates, you know? I remember, like, I was looking if I could find some garden or something with metal gates. I ended up finding one and being like, is this the core, the center of the Garden of Eden? Because keep in mind, like in Bali, you know, with all the trees and the flowers and everything, you can imagine how that felt. And anyways, after that, I remember I sat down somewhere and I started, like, not praying but meditating. And when I closed my eyes, I did not see darkness. I saw, like, pure white light, you know, like pure whiteness. And I had no thoughts, no nothing. It was just one feeling, and that was absolute bliss, and that was it. I stood there for like 3 minutes. Well, not stood. I was sitting, just feeling that for 3 minutes, and then eventually I stood up. And then that's when I started to engage with people, trying to find the answers, right? Because I'm like, okay, it's cool. I'm Adam. I'm the son of God, whatever you want to call it. What is it that I'm supposed to do, right? I'm very grateful about all these things, about life, existence, all that, but what is my purpose? What is it that I need an objective answer to? What is it that I have to do in life? And I remember I walked into a spa, the reception of it, and I talked with the lady there. She was very nice, very kind. I was asking her questions like, what am I supposed to do, all that stuff. In some way, I thought that she was there to help me, because when I went in, she had like a paper on her hand, and she took like 2-3 minutes, like she looked at me, but she waited for 2-3 minutes to come up to me and talk to me. And then when she sat down with me, like, she felt so pure, so connected with me. Like it felt like she knew exactly who I was, right? That's the feeling. Which probably was just that she knew exactly what was going on, because you can tell someone's high on mushrooms by their eyes, because they go broad. But anyway, and mushrooms are very common in Bali. But the thing is that, yeah, I talked with her a little bit, but I didn't get any answer or anything. And eventually I just left. And I went to another one. And I just sat, well, another one, not another spa, but like some other area that had like a pond with fish. And I sat there. And then I just thought to myself okay, let me just try to talk to God directly instead of going to someone. And I just thought to myself, like, please God, can you for once, just once in my life, can you objectively tell me what is it that I'm supposed to do? Give me a clear sign of what is it that I'm supposed to do. And then I stand up, and as I'm walking, the thought that comes to my mind is the golden rule, right? Just treat other people nicely, do good things, and try to build something positive while you are alive. And as I finished that thought, an Indonesian guy driving a bike crashes almost literally in front of me, like 1 meter away from me. The flip-flop, because the flip-flop brake broke or something, I don't remember what was it, but I grabbed it, I fixed his shoe or flip-flop or whatever, I gave it back to him, I helped him stand up again with the bike and all that. And he was very thankful, he thanked me for it, he took the flip-flop, put it again, and then he just continued driving, and that was like 2 seconds after that thought of me just thinking like, oh, I have to do good things, right? And what I was thinking is like, man, I've been in Bali for 1.5 years. This is literally the first time that this happens to me, and it's right after I have these thoughts. So 2 or 3 more other synchronicities of this sort happened, and eventually I went and I found another guy that I had a 1 hour long conversation with him. And what's interesting is that when I went up to this guy, local Indonesian man, I started talking with him, and I started to tell him like, man, I don't know what to do, I'm confused, what's the purpose of life, what should I do, what should I not do? And I was really obsessed with, I don't want bad things to happen. Like that was like the main thing that I kept repeating to him over and over and over again. And by the way, he was super nice, super nice. I went back days later just to thank him, and I explained the whole thing to him, like, yeah, I was on mushrooms and all that. But really nice guy. And what's interesting is that without me mentioning it, he started to talk to me about God. Like as soon as I went up to him and I was like, man, I'm worried, can I talk with you? I don't know what to do, yada yada yada. He was like, well, first of all, he asked me for my name. He's like, what's your name? I'm Pao. Okay, Pao, nice to meet you. He's like, first of all, Pao, you have to be grateful for what God has given you, right? You look good, you have good health, you have 2 legs, you're in a good place, blah 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 blah, all those things. And then, I mean, it's a long conversation that we ended up having, but to me it felt as if I was talking like with the gatekeeper of either the Garden of Eden or heaven. Like this was my guide. That's what I felt like. But eventually after 1 hour or something like that of talking with this guy, I stood up, I walked a little bit, and he kept asking me like, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And I was like, I'm good, you don't need to do anything. But eventually I was like, well, my feet hurt, right? So I looked at my feet and they were bleeding. Why? Because I had been running for 3-4 hours around Bali. Like I'm trying to keep this whole thing short, but all this stuff that I explained to you, this is like 4 hours in already. And he gave me for free these flip-flops and some water, and I thanked him. And eventually I was like, okay, I think I'm good now, I'm gonna go back home. And 2 interesting things happened then, which is like, as soon as I started walking, because the effect of psychedelics was already going down, I started to think to myself like, there's no way this was just psychedelics. There is absolutely no, it's not possible that I'm going back to what I was experiencing before, right? Because it was such a high level of awareness that I had been experiencing. You know when you wake up from a dream, that you can clearly see you were in a dream? Because when you're in a dream, it does feel like it's real. But then you wake up and you're like, no. Of course it was not. And you think about the dream and it's all blurry and it's like, oh, of course now I'm in reality. Well, that's how it felt when I was really into the depths of this psychedelic trip. which was like, no, now I'm actually awake. All that life that I had in the past, that was completely fake. But as I was sleeping back into this waking state that you and I guess you also, I guess you're not taking psychedelics watching this, but the state in which you and I are operating right now, I was like, there's no way I'm going back into this normal waking state, you know? And then what's interesting is that 2 minutes later, it started raining. It went from a super beautiful sunny day to rain, like pouring rain. And I had to walk all the way back home, all those kilometers that I had been running. And yeah, I got back home soaking wet. And once I got there, I took a shower. I went out and then I was thinking like, okay, I think that didn't happen. But then I went to the front door, I opened it, and I saw the flip-flops that guy had gifted me. The guy that I was talking with, that I thought he was the messenger of God or something. So I was like, oh no, that actually definitely happened. So yeah, that was insane. Now what happened after this is that for the next week or the next few days, I would wake up in the middle of the night and feel like I was still inside the psychedelic trip. I still felt like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know where I was. And I woke up like confused, and it took me usually like 15-20 minutes to fall back to sleep again. And eventually after a week, I had this weird dream that I want to draw to you. So I had this dream, maybe the camera like this. I had this dream that I was in like 12 locations, right? And basically I was teleporting between them. I don't know if that was 12, but no, it's not 12, that's 13. But yeah, basically I would be here and I would be on this location for a little bit, and just with positive thoughts, I would improve this location for like 5%. And this location could be like, I don't know, some grass with trees, and this could be a beach, and there's the mountains, and this is a city with buildings, you know. And I would be here for a little bit and I would improve it by 5% or 10%. And then I would teleport to this other location and improve it by 5 or 10%. And then to this one, and this one, and this one. And once I come back here, I do another 5-10%. And I cycle through them many times until eventually all of them reach like 100% purity. And then I was teleported to the middle, and I stood there for, I don't know, a good 30 seconds, and it felt like everything was merging together. I saw like a big flash of white light, and then I woke up, and then I knew exactly where I was, and it's like I had reconnected myself to reality in a way, like I was not out of it. Now once the trip ended, for the first 2 or 3 weeks I felt like this was a negative experience, like okay, this was a bad trip. But then eventually I started to realize like, no, this was actually like not a good trip, not a bad trip. It was like a workout in a way, like you go to the gym, you suffer, but at least you're getting something good out of it. That's how I saw it. But then eventually after 5-6 months, that's when I realized like, no, this was actually the best thing that happened in my life, honestly. And there's a few things that I think I learned throughout this trip that are a little bit personal, but I think it might be interesting to share. So the first of all is that I was raised in a Buddhist/agnostic household, and all my life I had been very obsessed, especially when I was young, when I was a kid, about existential theories, you know. I remember when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I was already thinking about simulation theory and all these things. But when I was 11, I concluded that you cannot really find any answer to what this whole thing is. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna park this whole thing. I'm not gonna waste more time thinking about these things, and I'm just gonna go live my life with the golden rule, and that's it. And that's what I did for most of my life until I had this trip, which basically reignited my curiosity about all these topics. And what I feel like now is that even though you're never gonna find the absolute answer with 100% certainty that this is whatever it is, there's still a lot of value in going through that journey of trying to find the answer. And the fact that there's no clear answer, that's done on purpose. It's a feature, not a bug, right? Like coders say. And that being said, I do believe with 100% certainty there is something to all this, okay? Like I do not align at all with the atheist view of the world, like there is nothing, whatever, 100% or something. I am not entirely sure about what this thing might be. There's some theories that I feel very strongly about, but I am not sure whether I'll find something that I hold 100% certain. And one cool thing that happened is that for the first month after the trip finished, I felt like wherever I looked, I could see God. And what that means is not that I saw a guy with a beard and some robes and 2 legs and 2 hands, okay, because that's what atheists believe God is, or what God looks like, or people who haven't done psychedelics. When I tell them that I saw God, that's what they think I'm saying. No. If I was looking at a lamp, I'm not seeing God hanging from the lamp. I am seeing the lamp. It's just that I can see God within the lamp. You know, like the lamp itself can manifest God. It's very difficult to explain, and it's something that I don't believe you can understand unless you've done a lot of meditation or thinking or psychedelics yourself. Another thing that I got out of this trip is a better understanding, in my view, of what God is and is not, and the understanding that you do not need a middleman to talk with God, right? You do not need the church, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. You don't need those institutions to talk with God. God is already connected within you, and you can talk directly with Him. And then another belief that I have after this trip is that our aim, our material aim and objective in this world, even if we're not going to achieve it, because I don't think we're going to achieve it, but the aim itself is in a way to create the Garden of Eden, to create this perfect world, this perfect society for all living things. Now, I believe that we're not going to achieve that, but I think that's the aim, and that's what we should be aiming for. It's kind of like my health. My aim, what I'm aiming for, the target that I'm aiming for is perfect health. But that does not mean I'm ever going to hit it, right? Like, what does that even mean? And it doesn't seem like it's inherently possible within the reality that we find ourselves in, like perfect health. It doesn't really make sense, but that's what I'm aiming for, right? Perfect health. So I believe it's the same thing with society, humans, and all that stuff. Like, what we're aiming for is to create the Garden of Eden, even though if we might never achieve it. Consequently, I strongly believe that everything we do in life matters. I do believe there's objective good and objective bad. And one last thing is that I believe the way we perceive life and death is misunderstood. I do believe it's like a case of not being able to see the forest for the trees. Like, we're so into this whole thing right now of what's happening and what we're experiencing through our senses that we cannot really see whatever this whole thing is, right? Now, there's many other things that this trip launched me into, many esoteric ideas, topics, interesting rabbit holes, but this video is already getting way longer than I wanted to. I might talk about some of them and some more philosophical stuff in the future, so subscribe if you want to hear about that. If you have any question about anything, just shoot a comment about any topic and I'll reply to you. And if you need anything, check my website. Honestly, anything you want in life, you can attain it if you visit my website. I know that sounds weird, but I challenge you. Go to my website. You're gonna find everything that you want in life. Okay, so check my website, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay? Peace.